This is notes for section 7.4. Today we are going to be dividing powers with the same base. Now what that means is you're going to see a fraction or a division problem, and you're going to notice that the top and the bottom have the same base or the same big numbers or letters. So what we're going to do today is the top exponent is going to be subtracted from the bottom exponent. So it's going to be top exponent minus the bottom exponent. Now, in order to do this, the bases, the big parts, must be the same. So for this first one, I have 2 to the 6th divided by 2 to the 2nd. Well, I can actually write that as one base of just 2, because it's the same base, top and bottom. And then I just subtract the exponent part. So 6 minus 2, which will give me 2 to the 4th. Now, 2 to the 4th is easily done in a calculator. It's just 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Which turns out to be 16. So your final answer is just 16. This works the same way when you have letters. So x to the 4th divided by x to the 7th is going to keep the base of x, and we're going to now subtract 4, the top number, minus the bottom number. It's always in that order, top minus the bottom. So then I have 4 minus 7, which is negative 3. Now, am I allowed to have a negative exponent? The answer, hopefully you're getting to know, is no. So I have to make this a fraction and put it on the bottom part. So x to the positive 3rd now. Now I need a placeholder for the top of this, so that's just going to be 1. So my final answer will be 1 over x to the positive 3. Now I can also do this with fractions. So s to the 3/4 divided by s to the 1/2. I can rewrite it as just s to the 3/4, the top part, minus 1/2. Now, because I'm subtracting fractions, I want to get common denominators. So what denominator can I use? I can use 4 for both of these. So my first fraction is going to stay the same, 3/4. Now to get this to be a 4, I have to multiply by 2. So I take 2 times 2 and get 4, and then I have to do the same thing to the top. So 1 times 2 is 2. So I have 3/4 minus 2/4. So then I just do a simple subtraction. 3 minus 2 is 1, and the bottom, the common denominator, stays common, or stays the same. So your answer should be s to the 1/4 power. So next up, I have x to the 5/2 divided by x to the 2nd. So I can write this as x to the 5/2 minus 2. Now, this is really 2 over 1. So I want to get common denominators again, so I can actually just keep the common denominator of 2 and multiply this whole fraction by 2 to get that 1 to be a 2. So 5/2 minus 2, and then what's 2 times 2? 4. So then I subtract. 5 minus 4 will give me x to the 1/2. Because again, the bottom stays common, the bottom stays the same. Next, I have this fraction that has multiple parts. So I have m to the 2nd, n to the 4th, divided by m to the 5th, n to the 3rd. Now to do this, I'm going to split it up by common bases. So I'm going to take my m's first. M has 2 as an exponent on top, minus 5 was the exponent on the bottom. So I do that subtraction first. So 2 minus 5 is negative 3. Then I do the n part, which is 4 minus 3. So that gives me n to the 1st. Then I can put it back. So I can have m to the negative 3rd, n to the 1st all together. This is not my final answer because there's a negative exponent. So I have to rewrite this, and I have to put the m on the bottom of a fraction. So I put the m down below. That negative 3 now becomes positive 3 because I moved it. Now this n to the 1st, I didn't have to do anything with it, so it gets to stay on the top. So n to the 1st divided by m to the 3rd should be your final answer.
Can I have a custodian to the office, please? Can I have a custodian come to the office?
This next fraction has 3 bases. So we're just going to split it up into 3 parts. So the first base is x. So on top I have a 4 minus the exponent on the bottom is a 4. So this becomes x to the 0. Anything to the 0 power is 1. So that x totally disappears, it just becomes the number 1. My next base is y. So I have y, my top number is -1 minus my bottom number is -5. -1 minus -5 is like -1 plus +5. Change. So now I have to just add -1 plus 5 should be 4. So that simplifies down to y to the 4th. Then I do the z's. So z, my top number is 8 minus, now there's not anything here, but it is an invisible number, that should be 1. So 8 minus 1, which should give me 7. So I've done all 3 base parts, so now I just need to put it together. So I'll have 1, y to the 4th, z to the 7th. That is my final answer. Next up, we have raising a quotient or division problem to a power. So it's really important that to do these problems you distribute the exponent into the parentheses just like we did yesterday. But first you want to make sure everything inside the parentheses has an exponent. So in this first parentheses I have 3 over 5, so I'm going to make sure it's 3 to the first, 5 to the first. This next one is x over y, so it's x to the first, y to the first. A over b is a to the first, b to the first. 2 to the first, x to the 6th, y to the 4th. Okay, so now when I'm distributing, remember distributing is just multiplying. So I'm going to take this outside parenthesis and multiply it times the inside exponents. So for this first one, I'm going to come up with 3, and then what's 1 times 3? 3. So 3 to the 3rd over 5, and then 1 times 3 again is 3. So now I can actually simplify this by using my calculator. 3 to the 3rd is 27, over 5 to the 3rd is 125. So your final answer doesn't actually have exponents in it because you multiply them out. So 27 divided by 125. This next problem, I'm going to distribute in the 5. So x to the, well, 1 times 5 is 5, over y on the bottom to the 1 times 5 is 5. So that's my final answer. I can't simplify it any further because they're different bases. So x to the 5th, y to the 5th. This next one has a to the 1st, b to the 1st, and I have to distribute in a -n. So I have to multiply. So a is going to stay my base. 1 times -n is just going to give me -n. Over b, and then again 1 times -n is just -n. So now I have negative exponents, which means I need to change locations. So this a with a negative exponent is going to go down below. So a and the exponent will become positive. So a to the n goes down below. And this b is going to go to the top of a fraction. So b and the exponent changes to a positive n. So your answer is actually b to the positive n over a to a positive n. This last problem that we're going to do has multiple parts on the top and bottom. So I'm going to distribute this -3 into the exponents on all locations. So when I do that, I keep the bases the same. So 2, and then it's 1 times -3, which is -3. X, 6 times -3 is -18, divided by y, 4 times -3 is -12. So I distributed in, so I got rid of the parentheses, but now I have to work with my negative exponents. So anything on the top that had negative exponent is going to go down to the bottom. So I will have 2 to a positive 3, x to a positive 18. Anything on the bottom with a negative exponent is going to go to the top, so y to the positive 12. Now I can go one more step further. I can actually do 2 times 2 times 2, or 2 to the 3rd, to get this as a number. So I keep my y, so y to the 12th over 2 to the 3rd is actually 8, and I can keep my x to the 18th. So that's my final answer, y to the 12th divided by x to the 18th.